Hello folks, my name is Rod Machado and welcome to my Aviation Learning Center. Over the years, I've used a simple technique to help a student pilot develop his or her ability to think ahead in the airplane. I begin by asking him this question: what are the two most important things in aviation? Of course, I'm always prepared for answers like, let's see, never drink the airport's Colombian coffee, especially if it's pre-Columbian, and always reconnect the Hobbs meter back up when you're done flying. Ay. Regardless of the answer, I say, the two most important things in aviation are the next two things. Therefore, when I tap your shoulder, I want you to tell me about the next two things you need to do to fly this airplane. By repeating the process often enough, the student comes to associate the finger tap with the need to think 2 steps ahead of the airplane. If, after tapping the student's shoulder, he looks over and says, what? Huh? Then you know the technique needs a little more reinforcement. Using this technique is a lot easier than having to ask the same question over and over and over again. And it's especially useful when the cockpit's busy, which makes it difficult to ask questions in the first place. For instance, I'll tap my student's shoulder when we enter the traffic pattern. I'll expect him to say something like, report downwind and slow to 90 knots. I'll tap his shoulder again on base leg. He should say something like, apply 10 degrees of flaps and slow to 80 knots. Heck, if someone taps him on the shoulder while standing in line at a bank, he may yell, flaps 20, call the tower. And that's okay too. It's important to discriminate about when and where you tap your student's shoulder. Do it when thinking 2 steps ahead of the airplane is absolutely essential. Vectors to final, entering the traffic pattern, engine failure simulations, and other similar events are all appropriate times for the finger tap. Like most behaviors that are repeated often enough, thinking 2 steps ahead will eventually become a habit. Does this mean that students flying solo need to tap themselves on the shoulder to elicit this 2-step thinking behavior? Well, no. Higher order associative conditioning is at work here. Eventually, your student will come to associate thinking 2 steps ahead with the specific event that initiated the shoulder tap in the first place. So, good flying to you, and may you always land as soft as a butterfly with sore feet. Greetings, folks. Let me tell you about a new e-learning program that will help prepare you for your flight review by providing you with an up-to-date understanding of essential aviation regulations and airspace knowledge. Now, as you know, you're required to take a flight review every 24 calendar months. And the review requires you to fly with an instructor for at least 1 hour and have at least 1 hour of ground review on Part 91 of the Federal Aviation Regulations. Okay, flying is the easy part for most pilots. It's the ground review of the regulations that often makes us feel as if our mental wheel stopped spinning because our mental hamster just died. Well, it's simply boring, and most of us would prefer throwing ourselves in front of an onrushing glacier, opting for a slow death instead of having to spend even 1 more minute reading a sentence in a rule book. Well, if you're like me, and I know I am, then I know how you feel. So here's how I can help you. First, let's agree that it's very important for you to understand aviation regulations. There's no getting around this, and don't even try, can't do it. It's also important to understand that you don't wait until a day before your flight review to bring your regulation knowledge up to acceptable standards either. So keep in mind that things have changed over the years. For instance, if you own an airplane, you're required to renew your registration certificate every 3 years. Say what? Get out. No, it's true. And it's best that you know these things. To help you learn and refresh your knowledge in these areas, I've combined 2 interactive e-learning courses that cover Part 61, Airman Certification and Currency Requirements, Part 91, General Operating and Flight Rules, as well as rules and techniques for operating in many different types of airspace. Now, the exciting part about the flight review course is that it's fun to use. There, I said it. I used the word fun while speaking about regulations, and that wasn't by accident either. You'll find learning the regulations using my method to be particularly enjoyable. Why? Because this course contains animations, videos, and various forms of interactivity that engage you and maintain your interest. Now, just imagine telling your spouse that you can't do home chores because you want to study federal aviation regulations. That's right. He or she is going to think that you're actually planning to run off to the airport and go flying. But that's not what's going to happen, because you are actually going to study the regulations and airspace along with it, and it's going to be a fun thing to do. So keep in mind that airspace is part of our aviation regulation block. You need to have a comprehensive understanding of airspace rules and procedures, and that's what this course also provides. It provides you with the reasons why our airspace system is constructed the way it is. And I can assure you that you'll learn important things in this course about airspace that you will not learn anywhere else, and that's a fact. Yes, your flight review might not be, scheduled for a while, but there's no better time to brush up on your knowledge of airspace and regulations and maintain that knowledge at a very high level. The least this course will do for you, I suppose, is give you bragging rights over how much you know about the regulations, even though you haven't taken your flight review yet. I guess in one sense, this is sort of like being a kamikaze pilot, the kind of pilot that gets to do all this bragging ahead of time. So take a look at our special offer on the Flight Review Interactive e-learning course. It's a perfect course for flight review prep, or if you're a rusty pilot or just a pilot looking to maintain a high standard of knowledge.